You know what you're tired of, don't you? You're tired of being the person who talks about change but never changes. Tired of being the one who watches transformation videos at 2 in the morning, feeling inspired for exactly 3 days before falling back into the same patterns, the same excuses, the same mediocre existence you've been living for years. But here's what you won't admit out loud. You're secretly proud of how comfortable you've become with your own suffering. You wear your struggles like badges of honor, telling everyone how busy you are, how stressed you are, how hard life is. Because staying broken is easier than facing the terrifying truth that you have the power to rebuild yourself completely. I am Solomon, and I've seen empires rise from ashes and kings fall from thrones. I've witnessed the transformation of men who were nothing more than shadows of themselves, walking through life like ghosts in their own story. And I'm here to tell you something that will either wake you up or make you close this video and return to your comfortable misery. The person you are right now is not the person you were meant to become. That restless feeling inside you, that voice that whispers in the quiet moments that there's something more, something greater waiting for you, that's not hope. That's your soul demanding that you stop betraying yourself. True transformation doesn't happen in the light where everyone can see and cheer you on. It happens in the darkness alone, when you're forced to confront the debris you've been carrying in your mind for years. Your mental garage is so full of excuses, fears, and past failures that there's no room for the structure, the discipline, the purpose that could rebuild your life from the ground up. But here's what separates the chosen from the forgotten. The chosen understand that to become someone worthy of greatness, you must first die to who you've been. Not metaphorically, not gently. You must kill the version of yourself that settles, that complains, that waits for permission to live fully. This video is your turning point. Not because I'm going to give you another empty formula, but because I'm going to show you how to become a monster with self-control. How to embrace the chaos inside you and transform it into unstoppable power. How to clean out every piece of mental debris that's keeping you small and build something magnificent in its place. Life is going to be hard either way, but living without purpose, without growth, without the courage to face your own darkness and emerge reborn, that's a pain that will destroy you slowly, day by day, until you become nothing more than a breathing corpse. You have a choice to make right now. Close this video and return to your comfortable prison, or stay and discover what happens when someone finally stops running from their own potential and starts running toward it. If you're ready to stop being a victim of your own story and become the author of your transformation, then subscribe now. Because what I'm about to show you will demand everything from you, and I need to know you're serious about claiming the life that's been waiting for you all along. Number 1. Darkness as the path to growth. You sit there in your comfortable moments, scrolling through your phone, watching the sunset, feeling good about yourself, and you think this is when you're growing. You think happiness is teaching you something profound, but let me tell you a truth that will shatter this illusion completely. Your happiest moments are teaching you absolutely nothing. They're beautiful, yes. They feel good, absolutely. But they're not forging the person you're meant to become. I am Solomon, and I built an empire not in the light of celebration, but in the darkness of struggle. Every piece of wisdom that made me the richest man in history was carved from pain, extracted from failure, and born in moments when I wanted to give up completely. Happiness comes naturally. It flows like water downhill, requiring no effort, no consciousness, no growth. But pain demands everything from you. Here's the philosophical truth that separates kings from peasants. Growth only happens in darkness. Real transformation occurs when you're forced to confront the parts of yourself you've been running from your entire life. The traumatic memories you've buried. The fears that keep you awake at 3 in the morning. The shame that whispers in your ear every time you try to step forward into something greater. Think of your mind as a deep cave system. The entrance is flooded with sunlight, beautiful and warm. That's where most people choose to live their entire lives, in that shallow, comfortable space near the opening. But the treasures, the gold, the diamonds of your character, They're buried deep in the darkness where most people are too afraid to venture. I remember a young merchant who came to me, broken and desperate. He had lost everything in a series of failed ventures. His family had disowned him. His friends had abandoned him. He sat in my court, tears streaming down his face, asking me why God had cursed him with so much suffering. I looked at this broken man and I saw something he couldn't see. I saw raw material. I saw unrefined gold waiting to be purified by fire. I told him something that changed his life forever. I said, "Study your pain like a scientist studies a specimen. Don't run from it. Don't numb it. Don't pretend it doesn't exist. Get a piece of parchment and write down every detail of your suffering. What does it feel like? Where does it come from? What is it trying to teach you?" This merchant spent the next year doing exactly that. He documented his depression, his anxiety, his feelings of worthlessness. And in that documentation, he found patterns. He found lessons. He found strength he never knew existed. Within 5 years, that same man became one of the wealthiest traders in all of Israel. But more importantly, he became unshakable because he had done something most people never do. He had voluntarily entered his own darkness and emerged with treasures. Your traumatic past is not your weakness. It's your secret weapon. Every moment of abuse, every humiliation, every failure, every time someone told you that you weren't enough, all of it becomes fuel when you stop running from it and start studying it. The people who broke you were actually forging you. They were hammering you into the shape of someone who could handle anything life throws at them. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think healing means forgetting. They think growth means moving past their pain. That's not healing. That's avoidance. Real healing happens when you can look at your worst moments and say thank you. Thank you for showing me what I'm capable of surviving. Thank you for revealing strength I didn't know I had. Thank you for preparing me for battles I haven't even fought yet. The turning point comes when you realize that your relationship with pain determines your relationship with power. The people who run from discomfort will always be weak. The people who embrace it, who study it, who learn from it, they become unstoppable. Not because pain doesn't affect them, but because they've learned to transform suffering into strength. Here's what you must do right now. Stop avoiding the darkness inside you. Stop medicating it with entertainment, with busyness, with shallow relationships. Get alone with your pain. Write about it. Study it like your life depends on it, because it does. Ask yourself what this suffering is trying to teach you. Ask yourself how this experience is preparing you for something greater. Remember this truth as you walk forward into your own darkness. The deepest wounds, when properly healed, become your greatest strengths. The very experiences that nearly destroyed you will become the foundation upon which you build an empire that cannot be shaken. Number 2, the disorganized mind as a hidden obstacle. You wonder why you can't stick to anything. You wonder why every habit you try to build crumbles after a few days. You wonder why discipline feels impossible even though you know exactly what you should be doing. You blame laziness. You blame motivation. You blame everything except the real culprit that's sabotaging every attempt you make to change your life. Your mind is a disaster. Not your intelligence, not your potential, but the organization of your thoughts, your priorities, your mental space. It's like trying to park a Ferrari in a garage that's packed floor to ceiling with 20 years of junk. There's no room for anything new because everything old is taking up all the space. I built the greatest kingdom in history, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that external organization is impossible without internal organization. You cannot create structure in your life when your mind is chaos. You cannot build consistency when your thoughts are scattered across 1,000 different worries, regrets, and distractions. Picture walking into a garage that hasn't been cleaned in decades. Boxes stacked on boxes, old equipment covered in dust, broken tools mixed with valuable items, papers scattered everywhere. You can't find anything. You can't work on anything. You can't even move without knocking something over. That's your mind right now. That's why discipline doesn't stick. Most people try to add good habits to a mind that's already overloaded. They try to squeeze meditation into a brain that's running 50 different background programs. They try to create space for exercise in a mental schedule that's already triple booked with anxiety about the future and regret about the past. It's like trying to download a massive file on a computer that's already crashed from too many programs running simultaneously. I once knew a brilliant architect who couldn't finish a single building. He had incredible vision, unlimited creativity, and all the resources he needed. But every project would start strong and then collapse. I spent time with this man, and I discovered something fascinating. His workshop was immaculate. Every tool in its place. Every drawing organized perfectly. But his mind? His mind was complete chaos. He was simultaneously worried about 3 different projects, angry about a client who had disrespected him 2 years earlier, anxious about his son's future, distracted by financial pressures, and carrying guilt about mistakes he'd made in his youth. His mental circuits were overloaded. His capacity for focused thought was completely compromised. I made him do something that seemed cruel at the time. I made him stop working on all projects for 30 days. No building, no designing, just organizing his mind. Writing down every worry, every regret, every fear, every distraction, getting it all out of his head and onto parchment. Then we went through each item and decided what deserved mental energy and what needed to be discarded. It was like cleaning out that garage. Some things were valuable and needed to be properly organized. Some things were worthless and needed to be thrown away. Some things were important but didn't need to be accessed daily. By the end of those 30 days, his mind had space to think again, space to focus, space to create. Within 6 months, he completed 4 major projects that had been stalled for years, not because he gained new skills, but because he finally had mental bandwidth to use the skills he already possessed. Your circuit breaker has been tripped. You've taken on so much mental load that your system has shut down to protect itself. You're trying to run a marathon while carrying a 100-pound backpack filled with things you don't even need. The problem isn't that you're weak. The problem is that you're carrying weight that isn't yours to carry. Here's the turning point that changes everything. Mental clarity isn't a luxury, it's a prerequisite. You cannot build the life you want on top of mental chaos. You must clean house first. You must create space before you can create structure. This is what you need to do immediately. Take 1 full day away from all distractions and empty your mind onto paper. Write down every single thing that's taking up mental space. Every worry about money, every regret about relationships, every fear about the future, every task you've been meaning to do, every goal you've been thinking about, everything. Get it all out of your head. Then sort it into 3 categories. Things you can control and should act on immediately. Things you can control but can schedule for later. And things you cannot control and must release completely. This isn't just organization, it's mental liberation. Your mind was designed to be a precision instrument, not a storage facility. Clear the clutter and watch how quickly discipline becomes natural, how easily habits form, how powerfully you can focus on what actually matters. Number 3, the illusion of cookie-cutter formulas. You've heard it all before, haven't you? Wake up at 5 in the morning, take cold showers, meditate for 20 minutes, exercise for an hour, read 10 pages of a book. Follow this morning routine and your life will transform. You've tried it. Maybe you lasted 3 days, maybe 3 weeks, but eventually you fell back into your old patterns. And then you blamed yourself for lacking discipline. But what if I told you that the failure wasn't yours? What if I told you that these cookie-cutter formulas are designed to fail because they ignore the real problem that's sabotaging every attempt you make to change? I am Solomon, and I've watched thousands of people chase these hollow solutions while their real issues remain untouched. They're trying to build a palace on a foundation made of quicksand. They're trying to plant a garden in soil that's poisoned with weeds. The problem isn't the techniques. The problem is that they're applying external solutions to internal chaos. Every self-help guru tells you what to do, but none of them address why you can't do it. They give you the blueprint for a better life, but they ignore the fact that your mental construction site is a disaster zone. You can't build something beautiful when the foundation is cracked and the ground is unstable. Think about a man trying to organize his closet while his house is on fire. He's folding shirts and arranging shoes while smoke is filling the room and flames are spreading through the walls. The clothes aren't the problem. The fire is the problem, but he keeps focusing on the symptoms instead of the cause. This is exactly what happens when you try to add positive habits to a life that's burning with internal chaos. The cold shower isn't going to fix your relationship with your father. The meditation isn't going to heal the trauma from your childhood. The early wake-up time isn't going to silence the voice in your head that tells you you're not worthy of success. I remember a young man who came to me, frustrated and defeated. He had tried every morning routine, every productivity system, every habit formation technique that existed. He had shelves full of books about self-improvement, but his life was still a mess. He was angry at himself, convinced he was just weak or lazy or fundamentally flawed. I asked him one simple question: what happens in your mind during the first 30 minutes after you wake up? He looked at me confused, as if this was irrelevant to his problem. I asked again, what thoughts run through your head before you even get out of bed? He began to describe a mental tornado: worry about money, anxiety about work, regret about the previous day, fear about the future, anger at himself for not being further along in life. His mind was a battlefield before his feet even touched the floor, and then he expected himself to peacefully meditate and joyfully exercise in the middle of this mental war zone. That's when I showed him the truth that changed everything. You cannot impose order on chaos. You must address the chaos first. The thoughts that are sabotaging you, the beliefs that are limiting you, the emotions that are overwhelming you, the internal conflicts that are draining your energy. Until you clean up the mess inside your mind, no external routine will stick. The turning point comes when you stop focusing on what successful people do and start focusing on how successful people think. Their morning routines work because their minds are clear. Their habits stick because they're not fighting internal resistance. Their discipline seems effortless because they've already won the war inside their heads. Most people have it completely backwards. They think changing their actions will change their thoughts. But the truth is, you must change your thoughts to change your actions. You must clean up your mind before you can clean up your life. Here's what you need to understand. That voice in your head that talks you out of your morning workout, that's not laziness. That's unresolved internal conflict. That impulse to hit snooze instead of getting up early, that's not weakness. That's your subconscious protecting you from facing something you're not ready to face. Stop trying to force external discipline onto internal chaos. Stop trying to build habits on top of mental quicksand. Address the real problem first. Clean up your thoughts. Resolve your internal conflicts. Heal your emotional wounds. Organize your mental space. The irony is that once you fix the internal chaos, the external changes become almost automatic. The discipline you've been forcing becomes natural. The habits you've been struggling to maintain become effortless, not because you found the right formula, but because you finally removed the obstacles that were blocking you from following any formula at all. Number 4, the glory that comes from falling. You've been taught to fear failure your entire life. You've been conditioned to see falling as weakness, as proof that you're not good enough, as evidence that you should stop trying. But I'm going to tell you something that will completely invert your understanding of what it means to be strong. The real hero isn't the man who never falls. The real hero is the man who falls and gets back up, again and again and again. The glory doesn't belong to those who were born with advantages, who never faced real adversity, who sailed through life on calm seas. The glory belongs to those who were knocked down and chose to stand, who were broken and chose to rebuild, who were counted out and chose to prove everyone wrong. I am Solomon, and I've seen kings who inherited their thrones and kings who fought for them. I can tell you without hesitation that the ones who fought, who suffered, who earned their crown through pain and perseverance, they rule with a wisdom and strength that can never be taught. It can only be forged in the fire of adversity. There's a fundamental truth about human nature that most people never understand. Strength isn't revealed in comfort. Character isn't built in safety. Greatness isn't discovered in easy moments. These things only emerge when everything is working against you, when the odds are impossible, when everyone expects you to quit. Picture a sword being forged. The metal starts as raw ore, full of impurities and weakness, but the blacksmith doesn't gentle it into shape. He heats it until it glows white hot. He hammers it mercilessly. He plunges it into cold water, shocking the metal with extreme temperature changes. Each strike of the hammer, each moment in the fire, each shock of cold water is breaking down what was weak and building up what will be unbreakable. That's what your failures are doing to you. Every time you fall, every time you fail, every time you get knocked down, you're being forged into something stronger than you were before. But only if you choose to get back up. Only if you choose to learn from the pain instead of running from it. Only if you choose to let the failure refine you instead of define you. I once knew a merchant who lost everything. Not once, but 3 times. The first time, a fire destroyed his entire warehouse. The second time, a business partner betrayed him and stole everything he had rebuilt. The third time, a corrupt official confiscated his goods and left him with nothing but the clothes on his back. Most people would have given up after the first disaster. Some might have survived the second, but this man faced all 3 and kept going. Not because he was foolish or stubborn, but because he understood something that most people never learn. Each failure was teaching him something he needed to know. Each loss was removing something that was making him weak. After the first fire, he learned about insurance and backup plans. After the second betrayal, he learned about character judgment and contracts. After the third confiscation, he learned about political strategy and relationship building. By the time he started his 4th venture, he was equipped with knowledge that no successful merchant possessed. Knowledge that could only be earned through suffering. Within 10 years, he became one of the wealthiest men in the kingdom, not despite his failures, but because of them. His competitors, who had never faced real adversity, crumbled when their first major challenge came, but he had been tested by fire and emerged as pure gold. This is what you must understand about the glory that comes from falling. It's not just about getting back up. It's about who you become in the process. Every time you fall and rise, you die to a weaker version of yourself and are reborn as someone stronger. Every failure kills off the parts of you that were holding you back and makes room for the parts of you that can handle anything. But here's the crucial part that most people miss. After you've burned away the weak parts of yourself, after you've let the old version of you die, there's a void. An empty space where your old identity used to be. That void must be filled wisely, or you'll just create new problems to replace the old ones. The turning point comes when you stop seeing failure as the end of your story and start seeing it as the beginning of your transformation. When you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this preparing me for?" When you stop mourning who you used to be and start getting excited about who you're becoming. Here's what you must do when failure strikes. Don't run from the pain. Sit with it. Study it. Let it show you what needs to die inside you. Let it burn away everything that's weak, everything that's false, everything that's not serving your highest purpose. Then, from the ashes of who you used to be, consciously choose who you want to become. Remember this truth as you face your next inevitable fall. The man who has never been tested has never been proven. The man who has never fallen has never learned to fly. Your failures aren't evidence of your weakness. They're the forging process that's creating your strength. Number 5, suffering as a divine test. You sit in your pain wondering why God has abandoned you. You look at your struggles and ask, why you? Why now? Why so much hardship when all you want is peace? But what if I told you that your suffering isn't punishment? What if your pain isn't evidence that you're forgotten, but proof that you're chosen? I am Solomon, blessed with wisdom beyond measure, and I can tell you with certainty that God does not test those he plans to abandon. He tests those he plans to use. The greater the suffering, the greater the purpose. The deeper the pain, the higher the calling. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. Think about this truth that will change how you see every hardship in your life. God doesn't need to test people He's going to leave in mediocrity. He doesn't need to refine people He's planning to keep in comfortable, small lives. The testing, the refining, the pressure that feels like it's going to break you, that's reserved for those who have a destiny that requires strength most people don't possess. Look at every great figure in history, every leader who changed the world, every person who broke generational cycles and elevated their entire bloodline. What do they all have in common? They were tested in ways that would have destroyed ordinary people. They faced suffering that would have made weaker souls give up completely. But they endured, and in their endurance, they were transformed into vessels capable of carrying greatness. Your suffering is not random, it's surgical. It's precisely designed to remove everything from your character that cannot handle the weight of your destiny. Every hardship is burning away fear, weakness, dependency, and limitation. Every trial is teaching you lessons you'll need when you're called to lead others through similar darkness. I remember a young man from a broken family. His father was absent. His mother struggled with addiction. He grew up in poverty, surrounded by violence and despair. By every earthly measure, he was destined for failure. But I watched this young man choose something different. In every moment of suffering, instead of becoming bitter, he became stronger. Instead of blaming God, he drew closer to Him. Years later, that same man became a leader who pulled hundreds of families out of poverty. He became a father figure to fatherless children. He became a beacon of hope in the same community that had once seemed hopeless. His suffering hadn't been punishment, it had been preparation. God had allowed him to experience every form of pain he would later help others overcome. This is what you must understand about your current struggles. You might be chosen to break the chains that have bound your family for generations. You might be selected to rise above the limitations that have kept your bloodline small and struggling. You might be called to become the first in your family tree, to reach heights that no one before you even dreamed possible. But greatness requires testing. Leadership demands proving. You cannot guide others through valleys you've never walked through yourself. You cannot speak hope into hopeless situations unless you've found hope in your own hopelessness. You cannot be trusted with blessing until you've been faithful in suffering. Here's the profound truth about divine testing. It's not about what you do when everything is going well. Anyone can have faith when life is easy. Anyone can trust God when prayers are being answered quickly. Anyone can stay positive when circumstances are favorable. But real faith, the kind that moves mountains and changes destinies, is only proven when everything is falling apart and you still choose to believe. The turning point in your relationship with suffering comes when you realize that hardship is not your enemy, it's your trainer. Pain is not your punishment, it's your preparation. Trials are not evidence that God doesn't love you. They're proof that He trusts you with something bigger than your comfort. Every moment you spend in faithful endurance during difficulty is an investment in your future authority. Every time you choose hope over despair, trust over doubt, gratitude over bitterness, you're qualifying yourself for levels of blessing that most people will never reach because they're not willing to pay the price that preparation demands. Here's what you must do in the middle of your current trial. Stop asking God to remove the pressure and start asking what He wants to develop in you through it. Stop begging for an easier path and start building the strength to handle the path He's given you. Stop seeing your pain as punishment and start seeing it as preparation for a purpose you haven't even imagined yet. Look at your struggles differently. Each one is a question. Will you trust God when you can't see the outcome? Will you maintain character when no one is watching? Will you choose faith when circumstances suggest doubt? Will you serve others even when you're in need yourself? Answer these questions correctly, and you'll discover that suffering wasn't designed to break you. It was designed to reveal what you're made of and to build what you need to fulfill a destiny that requires someone who has been tested by fire and found faithful. Number 6. Life as a choice between pains. You're living under a dangerous illusion, and it's keeping you trapped in mediocrity. You think you can escape pain. You think there's a path through life that avoids suffering, a way to exist without struggle, a formula for comfort without consequence. But I'm going to shatter this illusion with a truth that will either liberate you or terrify you. There is no life without pain. None. The question is never whether you'll suffer. It's which suffering you'll choose. You can choose the pain of discipline, or you can choose the pain of regret. You can choose the pain of growth, or you can choose the pain of stagnation. But you cannot choose no pain. I am Solomon, and I've lived long enough to see the end result of every choice. I've watched men who chose comfort discover that comfort is the most expensive pain of all. I've seen people who avoided all risk end up losing everything anyway. I've observed those who ran from struggle find that struggle followed them wherever they went. Here's the fundamental truth about human existence that most people never accept. Life is designed to challenge you, not to punish you, not to defeat you, but to forge you into someone capable of handling increasing levels of responsibility, authority, and blessing. The universe doesn't ask your permission before sending tests your way. It just sends them. Think of two paths through a forest. One path looks easy, smooth, and comfortable. No hills to climb, no obstacles to overcome, no dangers to face. The other path is steep, rocky, and demanding. It requires strength, endurance, and courage. Most people choose the easy path, thinking they're being smart. But what they don't realize is that both paths lead through the same dangerous forest, and only one of them prepares you for what's waiting on the other side. The easy path makes you soft. It gives you no strength for the inevitable moments when life demands everything from you. When crisis comes, when death visits your family, when financial disaster strikes, when betrayal cuts deep, those who chose the comfortable path have no tools to handle the storm. They break because they were never built to bend. The difficult path builds you. Every hill you climb increases your endurance. Every obstacle you overcome develops your problem-solving skills. Every challenge you face expands your capacity to handle bigger challenges. When the same storms hit, those who chose the demanding path not only survive, they thrive. They were prepared by smaller battles for the bigger war. I once knew two brothers born into the same family, given the same opportunities. The first brother chose ease at every decision point. He avoided difficult classes in school because they required too much work. He chose jobs that demanded little from him because he valued his free time. He married a woman who asked nothing of him because conflict was uncomfortable. He lived his entire life trying to minimize effort and maximize comfort. The second brother chose challenge at every opportunity. He took the hardest classes because they would teach him more. He pursued demanding careers because they would develop his skills. He married a strong woman who challenged him to grow because he knew iron sharpens iron. He deliberately put himself in situations that required him to become more than he was. For 20 years, the first brother seemed smarter. His life appeared easier, more pleasant, less stressful. The second brother seemed to be making his life unnecessarily difficult. But by their 40th birthday, the results were undeniable. The first brother was weak, unprepared, and falling apart at the first sign of real adversity. The second brother was strong, capable, and thriving even in the midst of serious challenges. The pain of discipline weighs ounces. The pain of regret weighs tons. The discomfort of growth is temporary. The agony of stagnation is permanent. The struggle of building something meaningful is difficult for a season. The emptiness of building nothing meaningful is devastating for a lifetime. Here's the turning point that changes everything. Once you accept that pain is inevitable, you can start choosing your pain strategically. Instead of having pain chosen for you by circumstances, you can choose pain that builds you towards something greater. Every morning, you wake up with a choice. Will you choose the pain of getting up early and exercising, or will you choose the pain of being out of shape and unhealthy? Will you choose the pain of having difficult conversations, or will you choose the pain of broken relationships? Will you choose the pain of working toward your dreams, or will you choose the pain of wondering what might have been? This is what separates men from boys, champions from victims, legends from footnotes. Boys try to avoid all pain and end up carrying the heaviest pain of all. Men choose their pain deliberately and discover that chosen pain is always lighter than circumstantial pain. Life is going to punch you either way. You can't escape the fight, but you can prepare for it. You can condition yourself. You can develop the strength, skills, and mindset that turn you from a victim of circumstances into a master of your destiny. Stop running from struggle. Stop trying to find the easy way. Stop believing the lie that comfort leads to happiness. Comfort leads to weakness, and weakness leads to suffering you didn't choose and can't control. Choose your battles. Choose your pain. Choose your struggles. Make them work for you instead of against you. Welcome every challenge as proof that you're alive, proof that you're growing, proof that you're being prepared for something greater than you can currently imagine. Number 7. Masculinity and duty over emotion. You've been lied to about what it means to be a man in this world. You've been told that your feelings matter more than your function. You've been taught that how you feel about doing something is more important than whether you do it. You've been convinced that emotional comfort should guide your decisions more than duty, responsibility, and purpose. This lie is destroying you. It's keeping you weak when you need to be strong. It's making you reactive when you need to be strategic. It's turning you into a slave to your emotions when you should be the master of your destiny. I am Solomon, and I built a kingdom not by following my feelings, but by doing what needed to be done regardless of how I felt about it. There were days I felt like staying in bed instead of making difficult decisions. There were moments I felt like avoiding confrontation instead of addressing problems. There were times I felt like giving up instead of pushing through obstacles. But I understood a truth that most men never learn. Your emotions are irrelevant to your duty. The world doesn't care how you feel about what you need to do. Your enemies don't care if you're sad, tired, or unmotivated. Your family doesn't care if you're not in the mood to provide for them. Your business doesn't care if you're having an emotional day. Your goals don't care if you're not feeling inspired. Results care only about action, and action must happen regardless of emotional state. Think about a soldier in battle. The enemy is advancing. His brothers are depending on him, and the mission requires him to move forward into danger. Does he get to say, "I don't feel like fighting today"? Does he get to stay in his bunker because he's anxious about the outcome? Does he get to wait until he feels brave before he acts courageously? Of course not. He moves because movement is required, not because movement feels good. This is the mentality that separates men from boys. Boys wait for the right feelings before they take the right actions. Men take the right actions and let the feelings follow. Boys make decisions based on what's comfortable. Men make decisions based on what's necessary. I remember a young father who came to me, overwhelmed by the responsibility of providing for his growing family. He told me he didn't feel ready to be a leader. He didn't feel qualified to make important decisions. He didn't feel like he had the strength to carry the weight of other people's needs on his shoulders. He was waiting to feel like a man before he started acting like one. I told him something that changed his entire approach to life. I said, "Feelings follow actions, not the other way around. You don't feel brave and then act courageously. You act courageously and then feel brave. You don't feel strong and then lift heavy weights. You lift heavy weights and then become strong. You don't feel like a leader and then start leading. You start leading and then become a leader." 6 months later, that same man returned to me. He looked different. He stood differently. He spoke with authority he didn't have before. Not because his circumstances had become easier, but because he had stopped waiting for his emotions to give him permission to be the man his family needed him to be. Here's what you must understand about emotions. They're information, not instructions. They can tell you something about your current state, but they should never dictate your actions. Fear might tell you that something is dangerous, but it shouldn't tell you whether to face that danger, if facing it is necessary. Sadness might tell you that something is ending, but it shouldn't tell you whether to endure that ending if endurance is required. The turning point in your development as a man comes when you realize that emotional mastery isn't about not having emotions. It's about not being controlled by them. It's about feeling fear and acting with courage anyway. It's about experiencing sadness and maintaining your responsibilities anyway. It's about dealing with anger and staying strategic anyway. This is what it means to be a controlled monster. You develop raw power, fierce ambition, and relentless drive, but you master these forces through discipline and wisdom. You don't suppress your strength, you direct it. You don't eliminate your aggression, you channel it toward worthy goals. You don't become emotionless, you become emotionally disciplined. The world is full of dangerous people who have power but no control. It's also full of harmless people who have control but no power. Neither is useful. You must become someone who has both the capacity for destruction and the wisdom not to use it unless absolutely necessary. No one is coming to save you from your responsibilities. No one is going to wake up tomorrow and improve your life for you. No one is going to make the hard decisions, have the difficult conversations, or do the uncomfortable work that your life requires. That's your job, and it's not optional. Stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting to feel motivated. Stop waiting to feel qualified. Stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to be who you need to be. Your duty doesn't require your enthusiasm, only your action. Your family doesn't need you to feel like a provider. They need you to provide. Your goals don't need you to feel like achieving them. They need you to work toward them. Be the man who does what needs to be done when it needs to be done, regardless of how he feels about it. That's not emotional suppression. That's emotional mastery. That's not toxic masculinity. That's responsible masculinity. That's not being a machine. That's being a man. Number 8. The power of tiny first steps. You're paralyzed by the size of your dreams, aren't you? You look at where you want to be, and the distance seems impossible. You think about the business you want to build, the body you want to develop, the relationships you want to create, the skills you want to master, and the mountain seems too high to climb. So you don't start. You wait for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect circumstances. You wait until you can see the whole staircase before you take the first step. But I'm going to tell you something that will change how you approach every goal for the rest of your life. You don't need to see the whole staircase. You just need to take the first step. And that first step can be so small, so insignificant, so ridiculously easy that it's impossible to fail. But here's the secret that most people never understand. Small steps, taken consistently, create unstoppable momentum. I am Solomon, and I didn't build the greatest temple in history by laying all the stones at once. I built it one stone at a time, one day at a time, one decision at a time. Every massive achievement in human history started with someone deciding to begin, not someone waiting until they felt ready to finish. The problem isn't that your goals are too big. The problem is that you're trying to achieve them all at once instead of breaking them down into components so small that taking action becomes inevitable. When you make the steps small enough, progress becomes automatic. Think about learning to walk when you were a child. You didn't start by running marathons. You didn't even start by walking across the room. You started by lifting your head, then sitting up, then crawling, then standing while holding on to something, then taking one wobbly step, then 2 steps. Each movement built the strength and balance needed for the next movement. But somewhere along the way to adulthood, you forgot this fundamental principle. You started believing that progress has to be dramatic to be meaningful. You started thinking that if a step doesn't create immediate, visible change, then it's not worth taking. This thinking is keeping you trapped in inaction. I once worked with a man who wanted to write a book but felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of the project. He would sit down to write and immediately feel crushed by the thought of creating 80,000 words. So he would write nothing. Day after day, he would think about his book, plan his book, talk about his book, but never actually write his book. I gave him one simple instruction. Write 1 paragraph every day. Not a chapter, not a page. 1 paragraph. 3 or 4 sentences about his topic. That's it. He looked at me like this was too simple to be effective. How could 1 paragraph per day ever become a book? But he agreed to try it. And something amazing happened. Writing 1 paragraph was so easy that he never missed a day. And some days, after writing his required paragraph, he felt inspired to write another. And another. Within 6 months, he had a complete manuscript, not because he had dramatic writing sessions, but because he had consistent tiny sessions that built unstoppable momentum. This is the power of incremental progress. When you make the step small enough, you eliminate the resistance. When you eliminate the resistance, you eliminate the excuses. When you eliminate the excuses, you create consistency. When you create consistency, you create results that compound over time. Most people try to change their entire life in 1 week and then quit when it doesn't work. But permanent transformation doesn't come from dramatic gestures. It comes from tiny improvements made consistently over long periods of time. A 1% improvement every day doesn't feel like much in the moment, but it creates a 370% improvement over the course of a year. The turning point comes when you stop focusing on the destination and start focusing on the process. Stop asking yourself whether today's effort will get you to your goal. Start asking yourself whether today's effort moves you in the direction of your goal. The answer to that second question is always yes if you take action, no matter how small. Here's what you need to do right now. Pick one goal that's been intimidating you. Break it down into the smallest possible step you could take today. Not tomorrow, today. Make that step so ridiculously small that you would feel embarrassed not to do it. Want to start exercising? Don't plan an hour at the gym. Plan to do 5 push-ups. Want to eat healthier? Don't overhaul your entire diet. Replace one unhealthy snack with 1 piece of fruit. Want to read more? Don't commit to a book per week. Commit to 1 page per day. Want to start a business? Don't write a complete business plan. Write down 1 business idea. The magic isn't in the size of the step. The magic is in the consistency of taking steps. Every small action you take is a vote for the person you want to become. Every tiny step forward is proof to your subconscious mind that you're someone who follows through on commitments. Success isn't about making massive leaps. It's about making small moves in the right direction every single day until those moves become habits, until those habits become systems, and until those systems create the life you've been dreaming about. Stop waiting for the perfect moment to take perfect action. Start taking imperfect action in this imperfect moment. The path to greatness is built 1 small step at a time. Number 9. Self-definition and personal liberation. You've been carrying a story about yourself that isn't true. A story written by other people's opinions, past failures, childhood wounds, and moments of weakness. You've been living as if this story is permanent, as if your past defines your future, as if you're trapped by circumstances that happened years or even decades ago. But I'm going to tell you something that will shatter the chains you've been wearing voluntarily. Your past does not define who you are. Your mistakes do not determine your destiny. Your failures do not predict your future. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become from this moment forward. I am Solomon, and I've seen men completely reinvent themselves, transform their entire existence, and write new stories that made their past irrelevant. The power to redefine yourself isn't something you earn or achieve. It's something you already possess and can activate anytime you decide to stop being a victim of your history and start being the author of your future. Every single day, you wake up with the opportunity to be someone different than you were yesterday. Not because you erase your past, but because you stop letting your past control your present. You stop making decisions based on who you used to be and start making decisions based on who you want to become. Think about a butterfly emerging from its cocoon. That butterfly doesn't carry the limitations of the caterpillar. It doesn't crawl along the ground because that's what it used to do. It doesn't avoid flying because it has no previous experience with flight. It embraces its new nature completely, without apology, without hesitation, without looking back at what it used to be. This is the transformation available to you every single day. But most people refuse it because they're addicted to their old story. They're comfortable with their limitations because those limitations excuse them from taking responsibility for their potential. They're attached to their victim identity because being a victim means never having to risk failure again. I remember a young man who came to me, convinced that he was destined for failure because he came from a family of failures. His father had been unsuccessful in business. His grandfather had struggled with poverty. His great-grandfather had never achieved anything significant. He believed that failure was in his blood, that he was genetically programmed for mediocrity. I asked him one simple question that changed his entire perspective. I said, "What if you're not the continuation of your family's story of limitation? What if you're the beginning of your family's story of greatness? What if your bloodline has been preparing for generations to produce someone exactly like you? Someone with the strength to break every chain and set a new standard for everyone who comes after you." The shift in his thinking was immediate. Instead of seeing himself as the victim of his family's history, he began to see himself as the hero of his family's future. Instead of being weighed down by generational limitation, he became energized by generational opportunity. Within 5 years, he had achieved more than anyone in his family line had achieved in the previous 100 years. This is what happens when you realize that you're not defined by where you come from. You're defined by where you're going. You're not limited by your starting point. You're empowered by your decision to keep moving. You're not trapped by your genetics, your upbringing, your past mistakes, or your current circumstances. The most powerful sentence you can ever speak is this: "That was then, this is now." Your past was preparation, not prison. Your failures were education, not identity. Your struggles were training, not punishment. Everything that happened to you was developing the strength, wisdom, and character you need to handle what's coming next. But here's the crucial part that most people miss. Deciding to redefine yourself isn't enough. You must consistently act in alignment with your new definition until that definition becomes your reality. You must think thoughts that support who you're becoming, not who you've been. You must make choices that reinforce your new identity, not your old limitations. The turning point comes when you realize that every day is a chance to prove who you really are. Not who you used to be, not who other people think you are, but who you choose to be in this moment. Every decision is a vote for your new identity. Every action is evidence of your transformation. Here's what you must do starting today. Write down the story you've been telling yourself about why you can't succeed, why you're limited, why your past determines your future. Read it out loud, then burn it. Literally destroy it. That story is over. You're writing a new one. Then write down who you want to become, not what you want to achieve, but who you want to be. What kind of person would have the life you want? What would they think? How would they act? What decisions would they make? Start being that person today, in small ways, in big ways, in every way possible. Stop introducing yourself by your past failures. Stop making excuses based on your history. Stop limiting your dreams because of your starting point. The most important part of your story hasn't been written yet. It's waiting for you to pick up the pen and start writing it with your choices, your actions, your commitment to becoming who you were always meant to be. You are not your past. You are your potential. You are not your mistakes. You are your decisions. You are not your circumstances. You are your response to your circumstances. Today is the first day of the rest of your story. Make it count. Number 10. Harsh truths about life. I'm going to tell you 10 truths about life that no one wants to hear but everyone needs to know. These aren't pleasant truths. They're not comfortable truths. They're not the kind of truths that make you feel good about yourself or optimistic about the world. But they are truths that will set you free if you have the courage to accept them and live accordingly. I am Solomon, and I've lived long enough to see through every illusion, every fantasy, every comfortable lie that people tell themselves to avoid facing reality. These truths will either prepare you for life as it actually is, or they will offend you so much that you'll ignore them and continue living in a dream world that will eventually collapse around you. First truth: you will be alone in your hardest moments. When life hits you with its most devastating blows, When you're facing your darkest hours, when you need help the most, you will discover that most people disappear. Friends will become busy. Family will find excuses. Even people who claimed they loved you will suddenly have their own problems that prevent them from being there for you. This isn't cruelty, it's reality. Deep suffering is a lonely path, and walking it alone will forge a strength in you that no comfortable relationship ever could. Second truth. People will remember your mistakes longer than they'll remember your kindness. You can spend years being generous, helpful, and good to people, but make one significant error, one public failure, one moment of poor judgment, and that's what they'll talk about. That's what they'll remember. Accept this without becoming bitter. Continue being kind not because people deserve it, but because kindness is who you choose to be regardless of how others respond. Third truth. Learning to say no is more important than learning to say yes. Most of your problems come from agreeing to things you should have refused. Most of your stress comes from commitments you should never have made. Most of your frustration comes from trying to please people who will never be satisfied. Your time, energy, and attention are finite resources. Guard them like the treasures they are. Say no to everything that doesn't align with your highest priorities. Fourth truth. You must accept criticism, but you should never accept disrespect. There's a difference between someone trying to help you grow and someone trying to tear you down. Learn to distinguish between the two. Welcome feedback from people who want to see you succeed. Reject abuse from people who want to see you fail. Be open to learning, but never allow anyone to treat you as if you're worthless. Fifth truth. The only real security in life comes from within you. Your job can disappear tomorrow. Your savings can be wiped out by circumstances beyond your control. Your relationships can end without warning. But your skills, your knowledge, your character, your network, your ability to adapt and overcome, these things can never be taken from you. Build internal security instead of relying on external circumstances to provide safety. Sixth truth. Most people are not thinking about you as much as you think they are. You worry about what others think of your choices, your appearance, your failures, your successes. But the harsh reality is that most people are too concerned with their own problems to spend much time analyzing your life. This should be liberating, not insulting. It means you can stop performing for an audience that isn't even watching and start living for purposes that actually matter. Seventh truth. Your family of origin doesn't determine your family of choice. Just because someone shares your blood doesn't mean they deserve unlimited access to your life. You have the right to distance yourself from toxic family members. You have the right to build relationships with people who support your growth instead of sabotaging it. Biology creates relatives, but choice creates family. Eighth truth. Hard work alone is not enough. You also need strategy, timing, relationships, and often some degree of luck. This doesn't mean hard work doesn't matter. It means hard work without intelligence is just exhaustion. Work smart, not just hard. Understand the game you're playing, not just the effort you're exerting. Ninth truth. You will never have all the information you need to make perfect decisions. You will always be making choices with incomplete knowledge, uncertain outcomes, and limited time. The ability to make good decisions with imperfect information is more valuable than the ability to make perfect decisions with perfect information, because perfect information never exists. 10th truth. You're going to die anyway, so you might as well go all in. This isn't morbid, it's liberating. Every fear you have about taking risks, every worry you have about failing, every concern you have about what other people will think, all of it becomes irrelevant when you remember that your time here is limited. You can spend your life playing it safe and still end up with regrets. So take the risks that align with your values, pursue the dreams that inspire you, live fully, because in the end, it won't matter what you were afraid of. It will only matter what you were brave enough to attempt. These truths aren't meant to discourage you. They're meant to prepare you. When you understand life as it actually is instead of how you wish it were, you can make decisions based on reality instead of fantasy. You can build strength instead of hoping for ease. You can create genuine security instead of pursuing false comfort. Accept these truths, not with cynicism, but with wisdom. Let them guide you toward authentic success, real relationships, and a life that can withstand any storm because it's built on the solid foundation of truth instead of the shifting sand of illusion. Right now, in this very moment, something is shifting inside you. You can feel it, can't you? That old version of yourself, the one who made excuses, who avoided the hard conversations with your own soul, who waited for permission to become great, that person is starting to feel foreign to you, like clothes that no longer fit. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a vast ocean at midnight. The water is dark, infinite, and completely unknown. Behind you is the shore you've known your entire life. Safe, familiar, but small. The ocean ahead represents everything you could become if you're willing to dive into the depths of your own transformation. Most people stand at this shore their entire lives, talking about swimming but never getting wet. They watch others disappear into the darkness and wonder what they found out there. But you're different. You're reading these words because something inside you is ready to dive, ready to discover what lies beneath the surface of your comfortable, limited existence. The water is cold. The depth is unknown. There are no guarantees about what you'll encounter in those dark waters, but there's something you know with absolute certainty. Staying on the shore guarantees you'll never discover what you're truly capable of becoming. This journey we're on together, this process of radical reconstruction, it doesn't end when this video ends. It deepens every time you choose growth over comfort, every time you face your fears instead of feeding them, every time you die a little to who you were so you can be born into who you're becoming. If you're ready to continue walking this path of transformation, if you're ready to keep diving deeper into your own potential, then join me in this ongoing journey. Subscribe not just to watch, but to become, not just to learn, but to evolve. The ocean of your potential is calling your name, and the tide is perfect for diving deep.